purpose of a risk assessment is to determine the likelihood of unintended consequences when you're releasing a technology. In particular for us is when you're releasing a technology into the environment. The important thing about risk assessments is that they're always considered to be context specific.
Understanding any potential adverse impacts on the environment or human health vis-a-vis to its non-GMO counterpart is required for both intended and unintended effects. So that's why we have to do a risk assessment study for any technology related to genetic modification to be done.
Specifically for the case of gene-drive insects and genetically engineered or genetically modified insects, you would need to do risk assessments case by case rather than technology-wide, which would be just because it's genetically engineered. So every organism is different in terms of its behavior, its biology, its genetics, its genome. So it would depend on the organism. It would depend on the trait that you're engineering. And every one of those introduces a difference that needs to be considered in the risk assessment.
All risk assumptions under the sun cannot be given an equal importance. For example, if we are working with genetically modified mosquitoes are not keystone species in the ecosystem. So for a population replaced with a genetically modified mosquitoes, greater focus of risk assessment should cover their potential to change their disease-carrying behaviors rather the ecological impacts.
This also applies to environmental applications. I think most of the people who would be concerned about the environmental applications of gene-drive technologies, and those concerns are legitimate, would not, I expect, want to prevent that same technology from being used in medical laboratories to improve our understanding of disease and to develop cures faster. And so when you do an assessment, you have to take those details into consideration.
So what impact will be seen if you introduce this organism into a particular area, and that depends on so many factors that define that area. All of these things are specific to every GMO that you would introduce. So you can't just say, just because it's a GMO, this is an umbrella under which and nothing else, not taking into consideration all these specifics. So the specifics is what makes it necessary to do it case by case.
When we do risk assessments, we generally look at two things. We look at the makeup of the technology itself and how it functions, but we also look at the proposed method of use of that product, the environment, in our case, into which it's being released, because the risks and the chances of success of a particular technology will be highly dependent on the environment or the situation in which it's used.